mankind to see. All of a sudden, Egyptian authorities decided just to put a wall, a perimeter wall, over the Great Pyramids. Well, there's enough suspicion. Why all of a sudden, close the pyramids? Because there was a digging recently that I think they found something controversial. So one thing is clear, there is a forbidden knowledge that all of us must not know. It's being kept secret from our minds. Again, as you can see, you might say this is a conspiracy thing, but it's clear. There are powers that be that seems to regulate what you can and what you cannot know. What else? Well, if you're updated with the U.S. development, right there, with the recent passing of laws in the U.S., like the Patriot Act, passed by the Bush administration, now Obama, the so-called NDAA Act, for your information. The U.S. government is preparing itself to be a police state, and that means, well, this is unprecedented. Martial law is imminent in the States. The NDAA Act is the National Defense Authority Act. One of the contents there says that now it supersedes the so-called corpus, I forgot the Latin term, which is found in the American Constitution, that the U.S. military cannot police its citizen. But now with the NDAA Act, that's been taken away. And it's right there explicitly stated that the U.S. military can now actually detain any American suspected, please take note, suspected, not proven guilty yet, and they will be detained indefinitely. This immediately takes away the writ of habeas corpus. So if you're an American, you're like in the Philippines like in the Marcos era. So here you can see that, the U.S. is heading for a very bad situation. Also, you get informed that, if you simply dig around and, be informed, there is a justifiable reason to think that World War III is just around the corner. I've shown some of this film in my class. If you want to get informed, listen to Lyndon LaRouche. He's a political analyst who was well known for seeing the events of 9/11 coming. And he came out again with his own analysis that he's actually saying that the powers that be are actually gearing towards World War III. And in fact, that's why states are actually now, the U.S. government is becoming more stricter in preparation for probably like a civil war. But then again, this has to be seen. Okay, lastly, being known as intelligent, you will gain a lot of friends. People will be wanting to be with you, having to learn a lot of things from you. So that's why it's more fun. Okay. Well, as I see it too, it's actually all a mind game. By being more reflective, you get the chance to see what normal people don't usually see. Such as, you begin to understand why humans are such, why they behave that way. Okay? You begin to realize though life itself is open, a human life itself undergoes some particular regular stages, wherein each requires the individual to act and behave accordingly. Now, knowing this, said there, you could anticipate the reasons why persons behave the way they do. What I'm driving at here is like, it's undeniable, right? We go to certain stages. When you're a baby, you have to behave like a baby. You cry, right? You get highly irritated. You become a kid. Well, what kids usually do? It's all play, right? Play, play, play. That's expected of a kid. When you become a teenager, concerns are more different, but generally the same. In class, you're expected to be noisy, right? So that's okay. That's expected, right? Of course, when you're a grown-up man, you become more mature, more or less aggressive, right? More mellow, and so forth and so on. Now, also, you get to realize that life itself is like a game to be played, either with sincerity or apathy. Of course, it now depends on the reasons that you have discovered in your life. It's not all the same for everyone. Next, you also tend to realize, right there, the moral rules that you were told while growing may not, after all, be absolute. Yeah, because we were all been told, when you were growing up, that there is God. God tells everything. You've been painted a nice, beautiful picture. Everything very orderly. Okay. So, yeah, we were told while growing up may not all be absolute. In fact, the question of absoluteness or permanence alone is in fact open to question. Of course, the immediate effect is that relativism ensues. You begin to realize that existence itself can and might simply be a matrix. I'm referring to the movie, if you've seen the movie Matrix. Okay, that is, it may not after all be the real thing, okay, but could be seen as a virtual reality that appears to be so real. Yeah, that's exactly when you're in the Matrix, right? You can even die in the Matrix. It's just so real, but then again, it's just a Matrix. Okay, so you come to realize this phenomena we call mind appears to be the sole pilot that relates, direct, and affect the outer material world which we all live in. It's the mind. Okay? In this sense, one realizes that it's mind over matter. Okay? Okay, here are the effects, sorry for the typographical error there, and benefits of philosophy. Having the qualities and unique traits of the philosopher's mind, consequential effects follow. Well, one thing is clear, undoubtedly, a sense of heightened awareness of reality. Well, you don't need drugs to distort and heighten your awareness. In itself, it's already mind-blowing. Improve rational capacity for reasoning and explanation. In other words, being more logical, but not necessarily close to it. Okay? More use of the mind enhances the mind. Okay? There's a saying, if you don't use it, you will lose it. Okay? At the same time, the effects is that, nowadays, you become more cautious in approach to daily situations. In other words, your aggressiveness, your recklessness, your daringness is kind of more controlled. Reflection in all decisions to be made becomes second nature. In other words, anything that you do, you always think twice or even thrice. Well, skepticism, you know what the word means, becomes a trusted tool. In other words, it's more of a healthy kind of skepticism. You don't just easily believe. You always, have an element of doubt. And of course, another most interesting thing that you get is, it follows also. Creativity is always at hand. Why so? Because since you have a variety of things at your disposal, you will never run out of things to think about. And you can shuffle these things in a very creative way. So, we come now to the dangers of philosophy. Well, I realized this in a hard way, so I guess I told myself maybe once and for all I have to put it on paper. Well, it taught me, well, I won't relate any more of these things, but I learned it the hard way. That I realized that maybe, there is a danger in teaching philosophy. I don't know with any other subjects. Okay. Having realized that life itself is transient, fleeting, and not permanent, and will soon come to pass, many thoughts can now easily come in for the intensely curious mind. Okay. One is the intense curiosity to know may be too strong, that now it leads the curious mind to earnestly want to see and experience the other side or the real world. Well, we come here, in my class I discuss this thing, and this is usually found in existentialism. Well, it's called the existential realization. Okay. The asking for meaning is one of the dangers, since after realizing the fleetingness of all things around us, an intensely curious mind could not help but ask, what the hell am I doing here? No, don't answer the question by saying, sir, we're listening to you. No, you missed the point of the question. With this in mind, one's whole life will have to be affected. That is, whether you like it or not. The intensely curious mind will have to see the everyday things in relation to this thinking. The one ultimate question is finally asked: what am I living for? This question is not new, as it was already raised by the French existential philosopher Albert Camus. Okay. Furthermore, a feeling or sense of weirdness grips the philosophy. Why the sense of weirdness? First, you begin to realize that we came out of nothing. Okay, that is, nobody knows where we all came from, and also realize most likely we will end in nothing, since no one knows what happens after we all die. Death appears to be final. This now tends to put the philosopher in a very dangerous footing. It may even cause severe confusion, not to mention great anxiety and even anguish. If this really hits you good, I would suggest that don't let yourself be alone. Be with friends. Go out, party. Forget philosophy. The curious mind now gradually shifts all his interests to the next reality, the other world, in order to know. Well, there's a saying, curiosity killed the cat. Okay, the effect of this is shifting all current interests to the next reality, then all present things around the curious mind suddenly becomes less meaningful. This is, by the way, apparently seen common among believers in the afterlife. Christians, you are told, a more important thing is the afterlife, not this life. But that's another thing. And by realizing that life itself might be a matrix, there is now a sense of losing trust about the truthfulness of earthly existence. Dangerous thoughts now plague the curious mind. The supposed other world becomes attractive and tempting, more inviting. Well, these are the options that you might be thinking of. Well, I gave this metaphor, the coffin, it's the exit to the real world. In the movie Matrix, if you want to go back to the real world, it's the phone booth. You go into a phone booth, you make a call, and you're back to the real world. Here, when we get into the coffin, I think probably, we don't know, it might be a doorway to the real world. Interesting to think about. Okay. So in philosophy, the coffin is a metaphor for death, appears to be the doorway back to the real world. Of course, the real world is still a big if. Okay? Maybe, I don't know, I have a gut feel that there might be nothing there. It might be nothing. Why do I say this? Because we came from nothing. So chances are we might end up again back to nothing. Well, that's only me. Okay. So, it's a philosophical gamble as one chooses to cross the line. Will the philosophically minded nerd accept the wager? It now all depends on the adventurous mind, to which the philosophical mind is not without. The rest goes without saying. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Gogo, for that talk. We will now have a